Miner Ultra Adventures is a 3D platforming game that was released on Steam in 2017. It featured a constantly grinning miner mascot jumping over horribly jagged platforming environments set to the main theme from Gilligan's Island in what turns out to have been an advertisement for a Brazilian restaurant. The game was known as an utter piece of crap due to a camera that wouldn't show you where you were going, heinously slippery controls and platforming detection, and physics so screwed up that moving platforms just slide out from under you when you try to stand on them. But it also became infamous due to its goofy presentation and being so poorly made that it had an infinite jumping glitch and completely unfinished levels that you could use to skip huge chunks of progress, all of which made the game a prime target for speedrunners and a notorious laughingstock for everyone else. That's what happens when you have your game running in Blender, which isn't a game engine, it's a modeling program. The game is apparently a giant meme in its home country of Brazil, and if memes can spawn a theatrical re-release of Morbius, they sure as hell can get a Miner Ultra Adventure sequel made. So here we are 5 years later with Miner Ultra Adventures 2, running on an actual engine with Unity this time, and with 5 whole years of development lessons to learn from. Right? Yeah, I got a little confession to make. See, Miner Ultra Adventures 2 is actually the 6th game in the series. And if you're thinking I'm slacking for not having reviewed the other games, I tried. The first game was followed up by Miner Ultra Shooter, a 2D side-scroller where you fly a plane through canyons, dodging spikes, boxes, and cannons that fire a never-ending barrage of enemies that bounce all over creation in unpredictable patterns to friggin' bombard you at all times. The game is crippled by ridiculously oversensitive controls, one-hit deaths, and absolutely unforgiving yet inexplicably luck-based level design. I played this game for an hour, and I still couldn't get out of the first level. I figured a game this simple, where I couldn't beat the first stage, wouldn't make for a very substantive review. But if I were to try, precision in the controls is impossible since you are literally always turning and can't fly a straight line. Your base gun is horrifically useless, meaning you're screwed if you can't pick up new weapons that are damn near lucky to grab with the crap controls. The dev couldn't program the bullet time mechanic correctly, and enemies keep spawning at full speed, so there's a massive shower of baddies whenever you turn the bullet time off. The speed boost blurs the screen so badly that you can't tell what the hell you're doing. The background is a horrendously cheap solid blue color with all of 3 clouds copied and pasted endlessly. The physics to how you bounce around and what does or doesn't kill you feels completely arbitrary, and enemies will constantly rain down or bounce up and ricochet into you with barely a split second's time to react, so the bulk of your deaths feel like blind luck as though cruel fate itself is perpetually giving you the finger! But yeah, past that, if I had tried to review this game, it just would have been about 10 minutes of this. Damn it! The third game in the series, Miner Ultra Wild Tides, was actually pulled from Steam and impossible to get for a long time. This game, the miner and 3 random friends from the dev's other games, yeah, he's been a busy bee, head off to do battle with Cthulhu. Yes, that Cthulhu. And for some reason, they need to be riding jet skis to do this. And by the way, you're not fooling anyone with that hardware cursor. We all know that's the Hydra logo with 2 fewer tentacles. This is a more basic side-scrolling action game where you jump and shoot your way through obstacles and enemies. The graphics are a butt-ugly mixture of badly hand-drawn and stock clip art and CG, and the controls mostly feel fine. It's more that the platforming detection feels really off, like you have to totally force every single jump that you make. But if you miss a jump and instead hit a wall, here's what happens. Your character totally spazzes out and climbs up the wall like a crack-addled Spider-Man. The biggest kiss of death in this game is that you have to finish the entire thing in one life, with, near as I can tell, no continues, no checkpoints, no extra lives, and barely any health pickups, and even those are randomized item drops along with dumps of pretty much interchangeable weapons. And that one life that you're given only has 6 hit points, although you can get upgrades to boost that total by 1 hit at a time. But full transparency, I couldn't get past the second stage. See, right at the start of the second level, you're presented with 4 moving platforms that you need to cross over a bed of spikes. Except once you jump onto the platforms, they just slide out from under you because this dev, 3 games in, still hasn't figured out how to program friction! These platforms are too far apart to reach with your normal jump. You have to hold down to charge a super jump, while also holding left and right to try and stay positioned on top of the moving platforms. It's not an easy juggling act, and once I did finally get up these platforms, I realized there's nowhere to friggin' go. The only way any further into the level seems to be by throwing yourself onto the bed of spikes and just hoping that you can find new solid ground before your health is fully drained. I looked everywhere else, there is no other way around, and there's no flying ability that I think I'm missing either. So call me a quitter all you want, but the super friggin' hard jump followed by the flat ass impossible hope you can tank jump just made me shut the game off. With 1 life and no checkpoints, I probably wasn't gonna get much further anyway. There are 4 playable characters with slight stat changes and different voice clips, but the most special character is the miner himself, because he seems to be the only character with a special ability, the power to get stuck in the level terrain! Yep, just grazed the underside of this platform and he glitched inside of it. Spent like 2 minutes trying to get him loose, and like a minute later after I did get him free, he got stuck again, and this time I can't jostle him loose. This game sucks! The 4th and 5th games, which I didn't even hear about until I saw them in a bundle, are a 2019 remaster of the original game. Yeah, I'm not playing that. And 2020's Miner Ultra Rag Smash. Rag Smash is a multiplayer-only game where 4 human players, there are no options for AIs, run to grab items that shoot the other players in a deathmatch. The graphics look like ass, there are no controls other than basic movement, the characters all run on ragdoll physics that can get you stuck and screw you just for landing awkwardly from a jump, some of the levels have pits that you can't jump back out of, 4 human players are meant to huddle around a single keyboard, and my favorite part, there is no way to control any of the attacks that you can pick up, and trying to use a weapon will almost always kill yourself. Not that it matters, since there seems to be no scoring mechanic or any ending. A new level just loads up regardless of who won, and you do it all again. You move, you die, and it just continues. It's the miner's answer to Super Smash Bros., and it's one of the cheapest, devoid of mechanics, untested, unbalanced, most blatantly farted out for quick cash games that I've ever seen. So the Miner Ultra devs started at the bottom and followed it up with shovelware and 2 near unplayable games. I'm starting to get concerned that he took the wrong lesson from the original game, making rage bait games for YouTubers to overreact to instead of trying for actual quality product. But did they learn any lessons for the full-fledged proper sequel? It's time to finally find out. The game has no apparent storyline. You just spawn on an opening island and then you shit! Okay, the jumping controls are still awful! The entire game runs on moon jumping physics with low gravity and slow motion to where a single jump sends you flying off with very little ability to steer yourself. This lethal combination makes every jump in the game an utter pain to control and hampers every second of the basic gameplay. Not only is it really hard to aim your jumps, but it's hard to judge distance, especially since if you don't time your double jump at the exact right point in midair, you won't clear a lot of the jumps that you're supposed to be able to make by default. And because the game's detection on slopes is utter crap, it's not uncommon for you to make a jump and then just slide right off your target anyway, or worse, just bounce right off the platform. It seriously feels like the miner coats the soles of his shoes with butter before every stage. But, unlike the first game, at least the camera stays squarely behind you so that you have some ability to gauge jumps. You don't have the miner shadow to help jump like every other platforming game that's worth a shit, but still, progress. Getting hit doesn't knock you a mile back anymore, and holy shit, standing on moving platforms actually has the platforms carry you properly! It took 3 games and 5 years, but standing on ground finally works right! Most of the time. What is so hard to program about slopes? You stand on any uneven ground and the miner bobs up and down like a pool floaty. And speaking of pools, why is it every single time that the miner falls in the water and dies, his left leg bugs out and spins like a cyclone? Maybe every single fall into the shallow water shatters the ever-loving shit out of his knee. That thought makes me happy. The dev might have finally gotten moving platforms working, but every single time I use a moving platform, the camera shakes and strobes like a bastard. It's like the game is going through withdrawal from not being able to screw you. Anyways, after a few minutes of gameplay, I realized that I'm kinda stuck. There's nowhere else to jump to except for some towers off in the distance that are way too far to reach. Well, it turns out, if you read the controls and the instructions on the game's main menu, the miner has a chewing gum rope that you can fire at the environment to traverse long jumps. The game doesn't explain how to use it, though. By holding the right mouse button, you shoot a rope at the terrain, and I really thought I was past being surprised by crap like this. The miner uses the gum rope to web swing like Spider-Man! The Miner Ultra Adventures guy seriously thought they could pull off Spider-Man's webbing as a gameplay mechanic. And yes, it goes about as horrifically poorly as you'd expect. There is no sense of momentum or physics of any kind to the web swinging, and you barely feel like you're in control of it. You kinda try moving in a general direction and just hope that the miner swings somewhere close to where you need him to go. You can shoot ropes at moving platforms, but doing so immediately breaks the rope and sends you falling with no clue as to what happened. It turns out that shooting the rope at moving platforms is supposed to slingshot you forward, except you get next to zero actual launch from doing that. All that happens is you nudge just a hair forward while you fall to your death. If you don't release the web and jump off to your target and the rope goes limp, you can swing yourself around all you want, but you'll never gain the momentum to swing yourself up to a ledge or make another crack at your jump. If your swing doesn't go off perfectly right away on your first try, odds are good that you're dead. And most of the time the target that you need to swing to is tiny and is always surrounded by bottomless pits. The first time, the very first friggin' obstacle that you have to use the gum rope to cross, your options for a landing are either the top of a narrow-ass wall that you'll constantly overshoot, or one of two small moving platforms that you can't attach to properly. There's no other solid ground to land on, and you can't climb the rope. If you don't get the hang of these controls and hit your mark right the hell away, you're just dead! No second chance! This entire web swinging mechanic is crowbarred into every stage, and it barely friggin' works! Yes! Yes! I finally managed to swing to the rail. No! Dick! So basically we have a highly precision-based platformer where you can barely control anything that your character does, and missing any given jump unavoidably kills you and sends you back to the start of said level. Joy. See, I put out a call on my Discord server for any artwork of the miner trying to web swing and instead hurtling off to death or grievous injury. I only got 2 entries, though. But there is an upside to being stuck on the first level for 45 frickin' minutes. Now I'm fully practiced at the controls, I know exactly what I'm doing. I beat World 1-2 with no problems. Every level is broken into 2 stages. And now I can proceed without fear, because I have mastered shit! World 2 is a snowboard-like sliding stage, where the controls have completely changed. Now the movement keys don't do anything, and you steer exclusively by pointing the camera where you want to go, which you're left to figure out on your own. You move very fast, the map is full of instant kill spikes, and you're expected to jump the spikes using tiny ramps that you'll never hit correctly. World 2-1 has a saving grace in that the spikes aren't placed all the way to the wall so you can slip past them, but 2-2 is a royal pain. Again, the stage is full of instant death traps, but this time you have to creatively use the gum rope to avoid them, shooting walls to change lanes, hugging walls in a tunnel, or holding yourself until a gate is turned correctly. They're kind of creative uses of the gum rope, but you get so little reaction time that it turns into sheer memorization. Oh, and both stages of World 2 have a giant propeller blade that's virtually pure luck to avoid on top of it all. Now, you may have thought to yourself, wait, you have a web swinging power and the entire stage takes place inside a floating tunnel. Instead of going through the tunnel, why don't you just swing from the outside of the level? Good plan! It didn't work! I tried several times to use the rope swing to fly along the outside of the level geometry, and it didn't work worth a damn! I'd always get a few swings in, and then the gum rope would just fail to shoot anywhere, and I'd be left falling to my death with no feedback as to what went wrong. The game's central mechanic is now flat-ass refusing to work! But finally, I get through all the obstacles. All that's left is sliding down a narrow beam that's slippery and needs to be hit dead on. You sack of dicks! Okay, finally got down to the goal again. Just need to attach my rope to the— No! Why does this damn rope keep failing? Get! World 3 of the game is back to the regular old platforming, but now there's a fresh new layer of madness caked onto the terrible gameplay. Now you have a lot of enemies that require you to partake in the game's combat. And the game's combat is, well, horrid! It's not worth talking about the alternate weapons since you don't find them often, they only spawn at fixed points, and you lose them after taking one friggin' hit. But the only good weapon in the game is the chicken that machine gun fires bones and wrecks everything in sight. Most of the time for attacks you're stuck with throwing the miner's hat, which has no animation, it just flies off his head through magic, and the hat is friggin' useless. It has an utterly abysmal range, and it barely seems to read damage on anything unless you land a dead center bullseye hit on your target, which is hard to do since enemies hop, strafe, and fly all over creation. Come on. Come on! Sit still, you bastard! The enemies are these gross eyeball-looking things that hop on one leg, and they will not stop chasing you until they are dead! I've seen them hurl themselves off ledges, glitch into walls, and somehow float through the bottomless death pits to keep chasing you. You have basically no choice but to stop and fight every single enemy in Stage 3, which only drags the game out even longer when you inevitably die on the terrain and have to start over and fight them all again. Level 3 also introduces flying red enemies that are lightning fast, fire non-stop volleys of fireballs at you, and will pester you the entire rest of the stage until you kill them. It is friggin' frustrating trying to land a hit on these things. Your best option is to go to ground level so that their horrifically bad pathfinding makes them fly into the water and kill themselves. And that's not even the worst of the enemy programming. Check out this purple eyeball enemy that throws itself off a ledge to attack me. The land-based enemies are somehow floating through empty air to come attack me in mid-jump. These enemies are not supposed to be able to fly, but they do anyway. How do you fail at programming basic enemies this badly? Goons can just decide they don't feel like obeying gravity and fly into you anytime that they want! Oh, and another reason to kill the enemies as quickly as possible, you may not get sent flying back every time you take a hit anymore, but you can still get pushed into instant kill hazards when you're right at the end of the damn stage so you get sent back again! The game has a horrible habit of placing treacherous instant death obstacles right before the level exit to snatch victory away from you at the last second. 3-1 has a spring onto a narrow sliding path that leads to a block that you need to swing from perfectly, and any slight error in your run kills you. The pressure not to mess this up is so intense, I feel like I'm on Ninja Warrior or Wipeout. Oh, welcome to another exciting episode of Shite Out, where contestants try to navigate platforming challenges from less than quality video games. First, our contestant will have to jump across 3 moving platforms with springs, where a combination of stiff controls, slippery physics, and a glitchy camera will result in sliding right off the platforms to their doom. Next is the spiked sweeper bar, where contestants will die about 30 times before realizing that the reduced gravity and the speed of the sweeper make it pretty much impossible to time correctly. Players will instead have to jump around the bar and use the gum rope to swing to one of 3 extremely narrow bars. And I sure hope they hit those bars straight on, or else they'll slide right off and die immediately. Players will then need to somehow dodge axes on the sliding bars with no maneuvering space whatsoever. They'll do this by somehow figuring out that a swing rope made of chewing gum will act as an iron pole arm to stop them on the rails to time the axes. And then, due to a programming error that lodges players into the rail so that they can't jump properly, contestants will have to mash the crap out of the jump button to desperately try and leap to a row of springs, positioned on a ledge so narrow and raised that jumping from any rail but the center one will kill them. Careful on those springs though, they might not actually launch you high enough to reach the next obstacle. From there, players must run a gauntlet of floating platforms infested with enemies leading into a fight with the red-eyed flying bastard that will pester and shoot the player incessantly. Don't try to avoid him, or when you least expect it, he will push you right into the water. Also, watch your step because the game's crap-ass lighting engine will color the entire mountain as one solid color so that you can't tell where the cliffs are. Next up is the Scary Go-Round, a vertical pinwheel where players will have to blind-ass guess at the timing and haul ass to the other side because failing to get exactly the perfect height on the jump-off will cause players to miss the one tiny foothold tower that they're provided for the next section. Players will also need to land on said tower on their very first swing, or else lose too much momentum to swing anywhere else. Also, watch your step on the Scary Go-Round. The game's detection of running on slopes is dookie, and you might not actually be able to jump off properly to continue. From the tower, contestants will need to jump to a mountain that they have absolutely zero chance of reaching, and will need to attach a gum rope to the mountain and frantically swing themselves around its perimeter, desperately scurrying to both gain height and land on solid ground, all the while praying that the gum rope doesn't fail to attach to the damn mountain! Yeah, are you starting to see what the problem is here? It's not just that the game is designed to be hard, it's that almost every step of the way, that difficulty is increased by infuriating game flaws and breakages to where you'll keep dying just out of bad luck. The dev has taken to just advertising that their games are hard to try and excuse the crap design, but there's a line between Dark Souls and Gilson B. Pontes. And bro, you're square into Gilson territory. But it was while I was madly trying to climb this mountain that I finally figured out why the gum rope was failing to work so damn often. It's because the gum rope only has a range of about 10 feet before it stops working. Another factor of this mechanic that the game makes absolutely zero effort to tell you, if you try using the rope on anything that isn't in extremely close range, it fails with absolutely zero feedback as to why. Gaps that look like you should be able to cross them with ease will send you falling because surfaces that look in easy reach are just ever so slightly out of range of your useless ass rope. And since the lighting engine is so royally screwed that entire mountains are rendered as one solid untextured color, it can be really hard to gauge whether you're in range of a wall. So again, a lot of the difficulty stems from the game just being broken! Anyway, to get to the exit of World 3-2, you need to swing from some floating platforms. None of the platforms are within jumping distance, and the only platforms close enough to attach a rope are moving, meaning that they will just barely push me forward with the force of a fart, and then send me falling. I'm not sure how the hell I'm going to reach this, and pretty much any attempt at it is going to send me back through the trial and error luck-based gauntlet again and again until I figure it out. Isn't the design ethos of pretty much every platforming game that it's always crystal clear what you're supposed to do? My patience for this game is pretty much shot, and I'm only halfway through. Lucky for me, though, there's an alternative, courtesy of Minor Ultra Adventure's bafflingly devoted speedrunning community. A little trick that you can use to make the game vastly easier. Aim yourself at a moving platform that's close enough to attach the gum rope, pause the game, and right-click a whole crapload of times, about 11 to 15 tends to do it. And then, when you unpause the game, I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. I believe I can soar. I see me running through that open door. I believe I can fly. I believe I can fly. I'm not kidding, there's a glitch that lets you fly. You can launch yourself clear across the map off of literally any moving terrain in the environment, and if you aim it just right, you can use the bug to fly straight to the exit. It can take an hour's worth of practice, you'll want some distance from your swing point so that you don't crash into it, but it's easier than trying to cross these broken-ass levels with these broken-ass controls. I'm guessing this glitch works because shooting a moving platform with the rope multiple times is probably supposed to launch you further. If true, it's another mechanic the game doesn't explain, and pausing the game does not stop you from being able to throw attacks or fire the gum rope. So you combine those two mechanics and build up a dozen or so launches to fire at once, and voila! Shitty game, be gone! World 4 is another 2 sliding courses, and now that I know how to get the gum rope to reliably work, I'm just gonna skip all the obstacles by swinging around the outside of the stage. Yeah, screw dodging all the spiked balls, the carefully timed spinning death spikes, glitching into the ground so you can't jump, or having to use the ramps as ramps. If the game's broken, let's keep breaking it! World 5, the levels take another nosedive in quality. Now you have to swing and jump onto tiny moving springs that float out in the middle of nowhere, and odds are good that at least one of them won't launch you high enough to continue the level. Oh, and now the game has added purple mushrooms that spawn new flying enemies non-stop to chase you, swarm you, and either beat you to death or push you off into the lava. I gave up at the point where you have to use 2 tiny moving springs floating out in the middle of nowhere to bounce to another scary go-round, which is the third and not the final time this short game has recycled this same obstacle. World 5-2 is another hellish gauntlet. Rope swings off of towers onto tiny moving footholds, so if a single luck-driven, barely controlled rope swing doesn't go exactly perfectly on your first try, you get dumped into lava with no chance to save yourself. And this level is super long, just looking ahead at all the crap that I haven't even reached yet, and again, freaking everywhere are mushrooms dumping more enemies into the stage to drive you insane. Yeah, I used the flight glitch to clear these levels. World 6-1, my hand to God, I don't even know how you're supposed to start this level. There are no footholds near the entrance. There's nothing to swing to except maybe one solitary tiny spring that you might be able to swing to if you have friggin' flawless marksmanship. And also, this one level, there's a fugly white outline around almost everything in the environment. What, we had the obligatory platformer Grass World, Water World, Ice World, Lava World, and now bad Photoshop artifacting world? I tried to play World 6-2 legitimately, I really did, but after only a few platforms, you come to this. What is this? I defy anybody in the audience to tell me how the hell you're supposed to get to that next platform. There are no moving platforms to carry you, there is nothing to swing from nearby. What is this? Did the dev just give up? What am I missing here? And screw you, that's just evil. There's a red, fast, flying, fire-spewing enemy floating right near the exit to ram and shoot you off course and kill you mid-flight when there's nothing you can do about it. That goes past incompetence. That's just being an asshole. And now we come to the game's final boss. A pyramid with the Illuminati symbol and tentacles coming out its bottom. Okay, I know in the days of Steam Greenlight, the Illuminati was a big dank meme that all the morons thought was hilarious, but is that really still a thing? Huh. I guess it is. The Illuminati flies around spewing fireballs, enemies, and random items at you. And if you kill enemies, it increases the drop rate of items and weapons. It's actually not a bad boss fight. It's just too bad the boss fight is broken, because of course it's broken. It's Minor Ultra Adventures 2. If it's not broken, you're not playing it. See, one of the items that the pyramid will drop at random is a big wooden box. And if the big wooden box happens to land on you, the physics engine completely sharts itself inside out, and you go flying a mile off the stage. A programming error means that the boss has an instant one-shot kill move that it can use with no warning and at pure random. But I managed to beat the Illuminati. Didn't even know that I did it since the boss just kind of floated off-screen for a while to where I thought we were still going, and then it just cut to a congratulations screen. A congratulations screen that has a question mark next to the end with the threat of further DLC levels. But now it's over. Finally finished. And I must say, at the end of the day... Fuck! By cosmic coincidence, I just happened to be finishing up this review when the Trail of the Illuminati DLC was released. It boasts to be even harder than the main campaign, adds in glass surfaces for a new mechanic, and I quote from the actual description on the store page, brave many extremely difficult 3D platformer levels in search of the truth of the universe. Remember when this series was about a guy fighting aliens because they were stopping him from visiting his favorite restaurant? Weird evolution. Well, I'd like to go into all the brand new mechanics and challenges that the devs supposedly put into the expansion, but I can't, because the first level is almost comically impossible. The first stage of the DLC opens with a series of like 5 jumps spaced out to where you can only just barely make any one individual jump, let alone make all of them in a row with no footholds. Our old friend Caffeine Meme actually managed to beat the first level by the skin of their teeth. There's a spring and a bed of spikes that doesn't even launch you high enough to continue the level properly that they had to, in their own words, jank their way around. Only for Calf to then send me this footage of the second DLC level. Turns out they've added a new completely broken enemy type that renders the game just this side of unplayable. Calf says they've sworn off the game forever at this point, and I can't say I blame them. The dev isn't even trying to hide anymore that he actively hates you and wants you to die. Advertising that your game is hard is not a catch-all get-out-of-jail-free card to excuse unfair design and only just barely functional mechanics. The game is trash, and the DLC is burning trash! Minor Ultra Adventures 2 is not the funny kind of bad. It's the enragement rue the day you set eyes on it kind of bad. There has yet to be a game in this series that doesn't control like ass. The central mechanic barely works even once you figure out how it works, and bad controls layer on top of shoddy mechanics and unforgiving level design to make a broken pile of shit. The original Minor Ultra Adventures had a certain amount of charm to it. It was an amateur dev using a hilariously bad engine to make a goofy, buggy mess. But with Minor Ultra Adventures 2, the joke has stopped being funny! If I may borrow the phrase that'll be parroted endlessly anytime you say that a game is too hard, it's been 5 long years! Get good at making games!